and welcome to another Wolftime gaming video. Today I'm going to be painting up this Invictor Warsuit in a very similar style to how I've done my Dreadnought, which you'll see at the end as well. I'll do a bit of a comparison, but I've really been excited to get to this one. It came with the Combat Patrol for the Space Wars that's just been released for 9th edition, along with the Codex and all the other bits and pieces. But I've been really excited to get this purely because I've never tried to paint this one before. I've never had it before for any of the other armies I've done. As you can see, I did a little bit of green stuff fur on the top, as I've done with the rest of the Red Wolf chapter that I've been building, and I've added a couple of other little bits around. Otherwise, he's pretty much standard, just a standard Invictor Warsuit straight out of the box. I have changed the head on the actual pilot as well, but you'll see that a little bit later on. Before we get started on the painting though, as usual, let's get that kettle on. So as I said, it's pretty much standard Invictor Warsuit. There's nothing really different. Tried to give him a little bit of a dynamic pose, so he's aiming like the heavy bolter that he's got in his hand. I've turned the pilot's head in the same direction as well. Can't see him in there because I haven't actually glued the frame onto it yet, well at this stage, so I can paint the actual pilot separately. So the first step is to give it all a decent spray coat of Mechanicus Standard Grey, and that essentially gives us a nice grey to start off with. So the next stage is then to dry brush the whole model, all those grey areas with Dawnstone. Now a lot of you are probably thinking, why is he actually dry brushing Dawnstone and he hasn't just sprayed it? Well, one, I haven't actually found a Dawnstone spray, and two, I think this highlights everywhere and leaves some of the darker Mech Standard grey areas, so it sort of works. It gives you a little bit of sort of shading, but we'll shade it properly now. I mean, as you can see, there's a few like sort of grey, bluey grey areas. They're the Mechanicus Standard Grey, and then you've got this like lighter grey, that's the Dawnstone. This stage, what I'm doing is coating all of those grey areas that we've just dry brushed with Agrax Earthshade. Now this adds a really nice shade down into all the recesses that you've got, especially if you're not using contrast paints, which I haven't in this instance, and we've gone straight in there with the block of Dawnstone. Even though we dry brushes, I do want to add that little bit of shading in, and Agrax Earthshade is perfect for that. A lot of people go for Nuln Oil, but I think that gives a lot darker look, and I wanted this to stay that browny sort of grey colour that I've got with the rest of the Marines. The next stage is all the black on the metal areas, so anything that I'm going to paint metal, I've gone with this Black Templar. It's a great contrast paint, and it works really well with any sort of grey and light paints because it gives you that highlight straight away, so you don't necessarily have to highlight, even though I will be highlighting all these areas, but it doesn't give you that really dark matte black colour, which I didn't really want with this model. I wanted to have a little bit of natural sort of colouring, which is perfect with the contrast paints. As I said, I'm going over all the areas that I'm going to dry brush or leave black, and apart from the gun barrels and things on the actual main weapon that we're going to paint silver, which I'm doing now. You can see I've painted all those black bits already. I've skipped forward slightly so it doesn't bore you too much, but you can see now anything that I haven't actually painted black, like the barrels on the front, it's got an auto cannon in his right hand as well, so I'm painting all those barrels silver, and also the frame around the cab, and any of the other bits that I wanted to be a lot brighter silver than the rest of the areas, which I'll be dry brushing silver over the top of all these black areas. It gives a very, very different look using exactly the same paint, so you're getting sort of two effects for the price of one, really, just by using these two different styles. Now you can see I've done all the silver now, and now I've actually painted the silver, and now I'm actually dry brushing all over most of the black areas that we've done. So all around the like mechanical leg parts, all those areas I'm dry brushing. Now you could just paint these silver and then put a null oil over the top of them, which would work. However, I wanted a different look from the barrels to the actual like mechanics of the actual walker. So he's sort of got one style for the weapons, one style for all the mechanical parts of the actual walker itself. Now I think this is a really good technique. It's really quick and easy to get a decent look on there. And what you could do if you wanted to start off with a black spray coat paint is start that stage first and give it all a dry brush and then add the grey on after. However, I quite like this. You can see now that all that silver's done. You can already see that sort of effect it's given. It's a very different colour from the barrels and the frame, which is a really bright silver in comparison, which is perfect for what I wanted for this model. So the next stage is to add some of the brass areas. Now I've run out of the brass paint I've got, so what I'm actually using is a golden paint called Retributor Armour. Now this is a really bright gold paint, and it's what I've used on the rest of the Marines for all the sort of livery on them, all the symbols and things, the eagles on the chest and all that sort of thing. I've painted with this, so it sort of sticks with that theme. And instead of having brass, it gives it a golden look, which is, I actually quite like the look, and I think it looks really effective. You see that on the skull there, it's quite good. And you're not adding too many colours. I mean, you've got to remember, this isn't, you don't want to throw all the colours at these things. You want them to look a little bit more natural. So the next step is to paint all the sort of seals and the parchment paper on them. So I'm just using Xandri dust at the moment, just to paint up all like the seals and the paper that's hanging down from them. And I'll do the seals like a waxy red colour in a minute, but at the moment we're doing that. And I'm also doing the inside of the fur that I've added over sort of his shoulders, or we'll call them the shoulders for now. Okay, so now just adding the red in. The red is just the Blood Angels red, which is a contrast paint, and I'm just popping that onto there. You can just go with the red paint, it doesn't really matter with this, to be honest, it's such a small area. However, if you use the contrast paint, you'll notice it drops into the recesses nicely, as we talked about with contrast paints before, and it means you haven't got to actually add any highlights in if you don't want to, and it looks really effective. You see I've also painted the red wolf at the front there as well with the same colour, and a few little bits around the model. Now the lights on the model are painted with a really nice bright Sotek green, and then just highlighted just in the centre with Temple Guard blue. Now this is a really difficult area to actually get into, as you can see. It's a bit of a pain, and I'd almost wish I'd not actually put the frame on at all to actually get to them, but it was fairly easy in the end. So all the furs are actually done with wildwood, contrast wildwood, another contrast paint, so to save all that time highlighting. You don't get as many as the highlights with contrast paint by using a grey paint as you would by using the contrast sprays like Grey Seer and Wraithbone, but it works really well still with the grey. You can highlight this with a lighter grey if you want to, but I'm not going to in this instance. I'm just going straight in with the contrast wildwood because I think it's a really good paint. So it's exactly the same one that I've used throughout all the Marines that I've painted for the Red Wolf chapter and all the furs, and it looks really effective, as you can see. Now the shoulder pads, I've gone with exactly the same colour I've used on the shoulder pads for the actual Marines that you would have seen in my previous videos, and that's just Celestra Grey. Now instead of with the Marines, I've gone with Celestra Grey for the left-hand shoulder pad, and the right shoulder pad I've done differently because it's the pack markings. I've just stuck with the Celestra Grey for both of them essentially. Now to highlight all the little areas around the model, do a little bit of highlighting along the edges essentially. All you need to do is grab a light grey, so you could use the Celestra Grey, but I've used Administratum Grey. Just get a little bit onto the brush. Don't try and paint it with the sort of end of the brush because that's a bit impossible. Use the side of the brush if you can, and all you're doing is essentially moving along those lines, and you can see it gives some really nice straight lines just around the model, and it really makes all those edges pop really nicely out from the rest of the model, as you can see. Now to darken all that silver down and to add a little bit of shading in there, I've used Null Oil. Null Oil is absolutely fantastic when it comes to any sort of silver because it makes it look more realistic. You put silver down, it's really bright on any sort of model. Stick it in some Null Oil or some, the dark shade from Army Painter, anything like that, and it really darkens it down and adds that grimy sort of look to all of those silver areas. Now you can bring that colour back up if you wanted to by putting some more lead belcher or anything like that on there. I'm not going to. I'm just going to stick this all over every part of the model that I've painted silver, and as you can see, it really makes it look like metal and works really, really well. Now, to actually add a little bit of weathering to the model, I've used a technical paint called Typhus Corrosion. Now, all I'm doing here is getting a little bit on the brush and putting it around all those rivets that you can see in the armour. I'm just dotting it on, and what it does is drop into sort of the recess around the rivet and makes it look a little bit more grimy. Now, what I've also done, which you'll see in a moment, is I've drawn some little streaks just from any of the sort of vents and just around a few of the rivets as well. You can see on the front of the model there, it makes it look like it, you know, a little bit of oil, a little bit dirty streaking out, which looks really, really effective, or at least I think it does anyway. Now what I'm doing here is adding a little bit of writing just to the parchment paper, and I've just grabbed a Corvus Black to do that, and a sort of calligraphy pen that I've had kicking around, because it's a really, really fine pen. It's really small, which means you can get those really nice neat little lines, and all you can see, all I'm doing is moving down the paper, just drawing a line, and that works really well. Now to add the transfers in, I'm just using a little bit of microset. Just brush a little bit of microset onto the model. You get the transfer into the water as you usually would, just for about a minute. Move it into place. Grab a little bit more microset and brush that straight over the top. What this does is sort of not melts but softens the transfer paper, which means that it fits the contours of the model. Now I know we're not doing it on a nice flat surface here, but on a few other surfaces it can be a little bit difficult, especially on shoulder blades, and the microset works really, really well. Now all you need to do then is grab a piece of cotton wool or tissue and just dab around the model just to take off the excess. And that's it, that's the model complete. Now you will notice that I didn't talk about the basing really at all, because I've covered that multiple times in my other videos, and if you want to know that, go and check those out. I'm not going to bore you again with the basing, but you can see the model's looking absolutely fantastic. I really like the streak effects that you get with the Typhus Corrosion. I think it makes it look more realistic there. You can see the transfers look great. These are Forge World transfers. If you didn't know, go to Forge World, stick in Space Wolves, and these will pop up. They are a little bit pricey, but they're well worth it, as you can see. You can see the other Dreadnought there, the Redemptor Dread, in comparison to the Invictor Warsuit. They look absolutely fantastic on the tabletop together, both painted in exactly the same way, so it fits the army and the aesthetic really, really well. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button, because I've got loads and loads of videos planned, and I want you to enjoy them just as much as I'm enjoying making them. Also go and check out the channel on any of the other videos that we've done so far for the Red Dwarves. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.